But notice, God tells us and shows us exactly how this works out for the good when we will entrust them and give them to Him. You go back to the Old Testament for a great example of this and look at Hannah's son, what happened with him. Before Hannah and her husband Elkanah, who was a priest, before they ever got pregnant, so they were struggling for a while, they couldn't have a baby, they remained faithful the whole time, and before they got pregnant, she decided, we're going to give this child to the Lord. They decided up front, we're going to give this child to the Lord. And then they did the hard thing. When he was born, they followed through, and they gave him to the Lord. But then it takes on an extra level of beauty because she carries him to the temple. And it's there he's then trained and influenced by Eli, the priest. So notice in both situations, the parents determine the environment the child is put into. Both influence children. Parents are the primary influence, but parents also determine the environment within which they grow up. And she puts Samuel in the environment of Eli. And Eli would look back on his life as a father, and I guarantee you he would say, there's some things I wish I did differently. But he still was able to influence Samuel for good in the Lord. And so you've got the parents pointing Samuel, and Eli, this older adult example, pointing Samuel in the right direction. And if we ended the story there, it would be beautiful and wonderful and worth celebrating and imitating. But if you know the life of Samuel, you know it doesn't stop there. Samuel was this priest and prophet while King Saul was ruining his life and ruining his kingship. But it was Samuel who got to go to the house of Jesse to anoint David to be the future king of Israel. You see the faithfulness of God in the faithfulness of Samuel, which means you see the faithfulness of God in the faithfulness of Hannah and Elkanah and Eli, who not only put Samuel in the right position to serve the Lord, but their influence is seen in the life of David as well. The constant passing of influence through the generations. That's what God makes possible when we will entrust our souls, and especially our souls of our children, to Him. And that's exactly why Paul is writing the letter of Titus. It's because Paul knows the same is true in the gospel. So 2 Timothy 1, just hold on to the phrase from verse 1 for the end of the sermon because it's the same thing that's happening there. But 2 Timothy 2, verse 1, you then, my child, be strengthened by the grace that is in Christ Jesus. Be strengthened by the grace that's in Christ Jesus. And what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, and trust of faithful men who will be able to teach others also. Paul recognized how he was influenced first by the teaching of the Lord directly, but also by men like Barnabas. And then he influenced Timothy and Titus and told them, you teach others, because then they can teach others. Knowing what you know about Paul, you can look at 2 Timothy 2, verse 2, and track 5 different spiritual generations when we will entrust each other to the Lord and point future generations to the Lord. Then look at what the Lord will do through us to keep growing the church as a healthy church.